Yo, what's good, boys? You already know where we are. Uh, we're in the sphere, and I am simulating some fights that I'd like to personally see. We're doing three fights here. I won't spoil the rest, but we're doing Michael Venom Page versus Gilbert Burns first. Hardest difficulty. Every setting on here is completely realistic, so it's going to be as realistic as possible, other than the time. We're making this fight a three-rounder, and the next two fights are going to be, one's going to be a five-rounder because neither one of them are a champion currently. So it's going to be a five-rounder because it's a main event worthy fight. And the other one, the main event, will be a championship fight. Um, Michael Venom Page, Gilbert Burns are my two favorite welterweight fighters. I've always been on Gilbert Burns' side, especially very hardcore on his side when he fought Hamzat Chimaev, because I really, really wanted to see him pull off that upset. I've always said he has very underrated power, and I've been in a few Discord servers related to UFC, and I told people during the build-up of that fight, I said, listen, man, everyone thinks Gilbert Burns is just like there just to get like absolutely just like ran through by Chimaev. But I'm telling you, he is very underrated, slept on power. He dropped Hamzat a few times. He's got very underrated power. I was trying to tell him before that. I didn't really have anything to go off of other than a few impressive knockouts. But, everyone assumed, I could make an argument for Gilbert Burns winning that fight, which is what I did at the time. And now so much time has gone past it. I'm just like, whatever. I still think he won, but, I'm not going to be too mad at it. Hamzat was an upcoming star. They're not gonna not give him a decision in a close fight. You know what I mean? Because he's more marketable than Gilbert Burns is. He's ultimately gonna make them more money. You got Gilbert Burns, who fought Sean Brady, back in early September. I think it was on the fourth or the seventh. One of those numbers is sticking out to me. Both of them are, and I'm sure it's one of those. I'm thinking the seventh is when it was. He, lost an unfortunate decision. Um, he's still himself. He's just been fighting people who are, just awkward, weird fights for him. Personally, he's my, second favorite welterweight behind Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page is my favorite fighter in the UFC right now. He's coming off of a loss to, what's his name? I'm not good at remembering names for some reason. What the fuck? Bro, I'm not even gonna look this up. Who did he fight? He lost to this, Ian Gary. Yeah, he lost a fight to Ian Gary. It was a decision. It was kind of Michael Venom Page wanted it to be, he wanted it to be, oh my God, that's insane. He almost got that. He wanted it to be a stand-up kind of fight. Ian Gary, if I recall correctly, he kind of just wrestled at the end and made it boring. I feel like he got hit with something by Page that made him like a little scared, if I'm being honest. We're gonna skip these replays here. But I would love for this fight right here to happen one day. Obviously each fight that I simulate, I'm going to make a pick for. I would say, obviously, I'd say Gilbert Burns' best chance is either a decision or a submission. I think MVP is going to work on his ground game a lot, submission, offense, and defense, and I think he's going to improve quite a bit because I think he's naturally gifted at fighting. I think he'll naturally get way better at it. So, that being said, by the time that fight would happen, theoretically, or, hypothetically, Michael Venom Page's submission defense and overall ground game obviously wouldn't be, his submission game wouldn't be better than Burns, because Burns is, very good, especially on his back. I would think his defense, submission-wise, would be good enough, unless he got rocked by Burns first, and then Burns took him down and tried to get a submission. So obviously in this game, they're going to have Burns, tapping out MVP. But I would say MVP would win. I think MVP would win a decision against Gilbert Burns if this fight ever did happen. And, maybe somebody's watching this to a point where, maybe the fight has already happened, and I definitely would have watched it on the night that it happened because I'm a huge MVP fan and Burns fan. So, they had Gilbert Burns winning via submission in the second round. Which, most likely if this fight happened, it would be a 3-rounder. I don't know if it, maybe being a co-main, maybe it would, maybe it would turn into a 5-rounder, but they're both like kind of low in the rankings. So I'd say whoever would be the winner of this fight, if they won it in great fashion, would ultimately, obviously they shoot up in the rankings unless Burns wins because he's already higher ranking. If MVP were to win this by a decision, he'd shoot up in the rankings and likely get a fight. Maybe, depending on how he wins, if he just completely dominates, first round knockout, second round knockout, or just gets a very good decision, maybe he gets a fight with Leon Edwards. Maybe he gets a fight with Kamaru Usman. Maybe. You never know. Maybe Colby Covington, which I wouldn't like that fight for MVP. I would like to see MVP knock him out, though. So, I don't hate Colby Covington, but, I don't know. I just feel like it's about time that guy gets, knocked out one time. I don't know. Just a humble one. Anyways, the next fight we have, well, the fight just spoiled. I didn't even think about that. Next fight we have is Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev. And Khamzat Chimaev is actually the most recent fighter to have actually fought out of all of these guys here. This fight's interesting. Obviously, Khamzat just moving up to middleweight. Very interesting on that. Very interesting there. Moving up to middleweight. As of this recording, Israel Adesanya is currently ranked second in the middleweight division, and Khamzat Chimaev is currently ranked third. And he shot up 10 ranking places with his submission win over Robert Whittaker. And he broke Robert Whittaker's jaw. If you guys didn't see that fight, search Robert Whittaker jaw or something like that, and you'll see the picture. Like, you can see his teeth, like his lower teeth are just completely fucked. Khamzat, pretty dominant performance there. Very good fight, I must say. I watched that and I was like, okay, you know what? I previously had a lot of not hatred. I don't hate any UFC fighter other than like Conor McGregor and John Jones. But I think personally, Khamzat, once he came in very overweight for the Diaz fight and ruined the whole event, whatever UFC that was, I forgot. He came in like 8 pounds overweight, and I was like, dude, come on, man. I'm just like, that's completely disrespecting the company. Like, what are you doing? I don't like people who don't take their, weight cutting weight cutting or, whatever they're doing. I don't like people who don't take their training seriously and come in severely under or overweight. I can't, I hate that shit, man. There's a limit with me. If you're anything more than like a pound or two over or under, that's when I'm just like, okay, man, really? Like, come on. You couldn't even take it serious and, like, make the right weight. But lost a lot of respect for him. Not that I had any to begin with, because I already somewhat disliked him before that because of, I personally believe that his decision victory over Gilbert Burns was a robbery. Obviously I think that fight could have went either way, but I think for sure Gilbert Burns won that third round, personally. And I think it was kind of a robbery, but the fight was so close that I'm not too mad about it, because with that close of a fight, it's just gonna go either way, and it's all based off of the crowd's reactions. Personally, in my belief, the crowd favors one fighter. He lands anything, the crowd's gonna explode. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, that was insane. But this fight here, Israel Adesanya is another talented fighter. He's coming off a back on UFC 305. He lost to Dricus. I call him Dricus. I've heard it pronounced differently. Pretty sure it's Dricus because I've heard it pronounced Dricus, but that just sounds so weird to me. But I'm pretty sure it's Dricus. I'm just now, that fight, not that fight, a few fights before that was when I heard of him, and I never paid too much attention to him. But, after I've watched some fights up to the preparation of him versus Adesanya, and I personally thought that Dricus would win. I thought he'd win by a decision. I can't remember how he won that fight. You gotta remember, I have not watched too much UFC lately. I keep up with it. I just don't I'll remember the ones that I watched. Like, I'll remember how they won, what, and, certain things like that. I'll remember certain moments if I actually watch the fight. But if I just read about it and get updated about it, like on Twitter or something, I'm not going to necessarily remember it too much because it doesn't mean as much to me. Um, but so Hamzat coming off a very good submission win. Adesanya coming off an unfortunate loss to Dricus. Um, who would win this fight? Let me skip this. My bad, guys. Who would win this fight if they fought? I'd have to give it some thought. Who would be the favorite? I would honestly think. Oh man, I don't know. I would like to think that Hamzat would come in as the favorite, just because his whole going for a takedown in the first 10 to 20 seconds of each round, or at least the first round. But he does it in some rounds, some other rounds as well. He doesn't usually make it out of the first round. But that whole thing is so intimidating, and then just his ability to get people to the ground, like the way that he did Kevin Holland whenever they fought. I love Kevin Holland to death, but I hated seeing that. And then obviously I had to root against Kevin Holland when he fought MVP, because everyone was picking Kevin Holland to just absolutely spark MVP, knock him out, get a decision win without losing a round. I was heavily. Here's the thing: is when a fighter fights one of my favorite fighters, I understand it's just the business. At the end of the day, it's just they're making their money doing their thing. They don't necessarily get too much of a say in who they fight. But I just think that once you fight my favorite fighter, it's just something personal against you that I have. Even if I don't know. I mean, it just depends. Usually it goes away after, but if they beat my favorite fighter, then that's when I am just so fucking mad, man. My top three current favorite fighters, and it has been this way for quite a while, is number one, MVP's new to the UFC, so he's instantly taken a number one spot. He knocked I'm not sure. So number one is MVP, Michael Venom Page, the one that we just now saw get submitted. Number two is Ilya Taporia. I'm a huge Ilya Taporia fan. After, seeing the first fight I ever watched with him, well, not the first fight I ever watched, but the fight that won me over was his fight against Josh Emmett. Just absolutely, just such a dominant performance. And I was like, oh my God, man, he's doing this with Josh Emmett, who, in my belief, he's another guy I like. And he was just dominating him, man. It's like a good fighter in Josh Emmett just could not find anything for him. And I was just like, wow. And, I seen if you guys didn't watch the fourth round of that fight, I believe is the round that it was. He hits him with such a nasty combo that sends him down. He hits him with a 3-punch combo. Such a nasty combo, man. Absolutely nasty. Sends him to the ground with a 3-punch combo. When I seen that combo, I jumped out of my seat and I was like, oh my God, that was such a gorgeous combination. Like, how the fuck did he manage to connect all 3 punches so beautifully? And then that's when I was like, wow, I am going to keep an eye on this guy. Because, it's just Josh Emmett at that time. It's just Josh Emmett. You're thinking, yeah, I mean, he did that, but, Josh Emmett is getting a little, he's not, the greatest fighter. He's a bit inconsistent. Obviously seeing what he did to Bryce Mitchell, I was very happy to see that, even though I like Bryce Mitchell. You gotta realize, I love a lot of the guys in the UFC. There's very rare guys that I hate, and usually what you'll notice in a pattern with guys that I hate is people who are, actual bad people, not good people outside of the ring. Or they disrespect the company by not making weight a lot, or putting on absolutely boring main event fights, like Rose Namajunas. I used to love her, and then that one main event she had, don't even remember who it was against, but it was the most boring fight. There was 30 punches thrown the whole fight. I was just like, really? Dude, everyone's here to watch you. I believe that was the co-main event of that event. I was just like, really, man? Everyone's here to watch you, and you're gonna fight like this? I get it's a strategy and stuff, cool and all, but how are you gonna fight like that, man? People are here to. I don't like people and athletes who disrespect the fans by not putting on a show, not performing. You know what I mean? I get there's going to be boring fight, but for that caliber of boring, it was just completely disrespectful to me. So you'll notice a pattern is they're either bad people outside of the octagon or they have way too big of an ego and they can't back it up. If someone has an ego in fighting, that's cool. Fighting, you can have an ego in fighting, but when your ego is undeserved, that's when I'm like, okay, yeah, you're just being a dickhead. You know what I mean? I like confident fighters, but when you're being unrealistically confident, like Jake Paul saying that he could beat Canelo Alvarez, that's when I'm like, okay, you're just being, you're just like, you don't even believe that. And even if you do believe that, you're fucking stupid for believing. You know what I mean? Like, I like realistic people. So people that I don't like in fighting, John Jones, terrible person. Conor McGregor, also a terrible person. Don't know how he has so many fans. Same for John Jones. He's such a piece of shit human being. Um, there's not too many other fighters I dislike. I mean, there's a few who I don't necessarily like that I would usually like to see lose, like Terrence McKinney. Wouldn't mind seeing him lose because he talking shit all the time on KSI. Wouldn't mind seeing that. And he's been knocked out a few times since he's talked shit, I'm pretty sure. And even know that I keep up with him because I don't give a fuck. Occasionally he'll find himself on a card of a fighter that I want to watch and I have to watch it. Oh my god. But who would win this fight if I had to make an ultimate decision? I think Hamzat Chimaev's chin is not as good as people think it is, even though nobody really talks on his chin anyways. Nobody is really hyping up his chin like it's the greatest thing ever. Do I think Israel Adesanya could find the connection? I think this is how the fight would go. I think early on, or maybe midway on, it'd be maybe slow or boring. Hamzat might shoot for a takedown. I feel like Israel Adesanya would definitely not get taken down because his takedown defense is very good. I would say he'd go for a takedown. I'd say Adesanya ends up eventually rocking Hamzat Chimaev, maybe even twice, maybe once, definitely once, maybe twice. I would say Hamzat gets to the stool at the end of the round, adjusts to it. I'd say he eventually finds a way to maybe secure a takedown. He maybe starts fighting a little sloppy or ugly or unpredictable, unorthodox to try and find a takedown. I'd say he gets it, and from there, I would say depending on how tired Israel Adesanya is, he might get a submission victory. If I had to get a pick, I would say Adesanya would win. Let's say it's a 5-round fight. Adesanya might win the first 2 rounds. I would say from there, Hamzat adjusts and makes it ugly and just wins on ground control time for the next 3 rounds. He wins all those 3 rounds and ends up coming away with a decision victory. Because I don't think he'd be able to secure a submission. I don't think he would. But however, if Adesanya were to win the first 2 rounds, assuming that the only way Hamzat could win is either by a submission or getting ground control time for the next 3 rounds, all Adesanya would have to do in one of those rounds, just one, to flip it to a 3-2 advantage for him, would be don't let him take him down and keep him down for one of those 3 rounds. So Hamzat would have a bit of a task trying to take down someone who's very hard to take down for 3 rounds in a row. So even if he does it once, he has to do it 2 more times. He has to. He can't just do it twice because then that would be possibly a split decision for Adesanya. Um, if I had to indefinitely make a pick right now, I'd have to wait for the fight build up. But if I had to make a pick now, I would say that he wouldn't be able to, and I would say that Israel Adesanya would get a decision victory. I'd say he would maybe nearly get submitted at least 1 or 2 times in the fight, and I would say that he would rock Hamzat at least at least 3 times, at least at the bare minimum 3 times. That's who I would pick to win. Israel Adesanya by a decision. Then again, like I said, I would change. I might end up changing that if they ever do end up fighting, which I'd say that fight needs to happen. So that right there is the second fight that I want to see the most. Now the first fight is of course John Jones and Tom Aspinall. Um, this is the fight everyone wants, man. I don't give a fuck about John Jones, but this fight needs to happen. I would love to see Tom Aspinall absolutely destroy this absolute piece of shit human being and make him never fight again. And not by, insanely, like an insanely bad injury, or I just meant like he just beats him so bad to the point where John Jones just decides to not fight again. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, so you have Tom Aspinall, who is coming off his fight in back in July, or wait, was it July or early August? Whatever it was, coming off a win at UFC 304 against Curtis Blades, which is my favorite heavyweight. Curtis Blades, by the way. Oh, but like I was saying earlier, sorry, I went off on a little rant there. Number one favorite fighter, Michael Biden Page. Number two, Ilia Topuria. Number three, probably Curtis Blades. But if he starts declining, I'll still always love him, and he'll always be my favorite heavyweight until he retires. But if he starts declining, he's probably going to fall off, and my number three will probably be replaced by, I don't know, probably Islam Makhachev, most likely. Oh, wow. So, before this fight, because this fight's not going to make it out the first round, let's be real, at least on this game, who would I see winning this fight? Oh, and, you know, since we went over the last fight of Tom Aspinall, we have John Jones, who is 27-1, and he's coming off of a, what was it, UFC 285 against Cyril Gane back in March. Last year, not this year. That was his last fight, coming off a win against Cyril Gane. Made it look easy as hell, which I didn't think he would, but fair play to him. The guy's definitely the GOAT of MMA, whether if I hate him or not. You know, that's the thing with me, is I'm always going to be a realistic guy, no matter how much I hate somebody. And that's why you know, I'm realistic, and I personally believe there's a lot of people that would beat Conor McGregor, and everyone says when I say certain people who would beat Conor McGregor, everyone says I'm just purely just hating on him for no reason. I'm like, well, firstly, there is a reason. Secondly, there's a lot of people that would beat Conor McGregor. I told my friend, one of my friends, that Michael Chandler would absolutely beat the fuck out of Conor McGregor, and he thought I was crazy. You know, I don't think that fight's happening because Conor McGregor can't stay off of drugs like the piece of shit that he is, and he's disrespecting the company by not, and the fans by not giving us a fight. You know, not that I'm a UFC fan, not that I'm a Conor McGregor fan. But, and you also have John Jones with a confirmed fight for November 16th, which is coming up here in about 2 weeks. Actually, exactly 2 weeks. For UFC 309 against Stipe Miocic, and that's a complete disrespect. He's dodging Tom Aspinall by fighting a legend who hasn't fought in forever, and he's just going to run through him. And I personally believe that John Jones is going to win that fight in under 1 minute. Unless there's like a flowing out process in the first like 20-30 seconds, but he's definitely not making that the first round. John Jones is going to win that very easy, just in a very good fashion, even though he's a bum. But yeah, who wins this fight? Tom Aspinall, John Jones, if they end up fighting? Hard to say. Can't believe he's made it out of the first round. I want Tom Aspinall to absolutely destroy him, but can he do that? I think Tom Aspinall could rock John Jones early in a fight, in a real fight. So here's how I think the fight would play out, and then I'll give you a prediction. So, first round, meet in the middle, maybe exchange some little light jabs. John Jones jab to the body, little leg kicks. Tom Aspinall tries to check him. I'd say he waits. He tries to time a John Jones leg kick and explode with a big overhand right or a left hook. So I'd say the second he tries to time the leg kick, he explodes in with a big right hand. I would say maybe he rocks him, maybe he doesn't, but I would say eventually Tom Aspinall would get his timing down. I'd say Tom Aspinall would eventually rock him, probably in the second round. Maybe a late first round, early second round, he rocks him. Does he capitalize off of it? I don't know. It depends on how bad John Jones would be hurt. If John Jones makes it out of that round where he gets rocked and he's kind of just stalling time to recover, maybe John Jones starts strictly going for ground game against Tom Aspinall, which, you know, obviously would favor John Jones. You know, unless he's so hurt to the point where he can't effectively do anything. No ground offense, maybe. But I would say that Tom Aspinall would need to capitalize off of rocking him. Don't get me wrong. If you rock him once early in a round, take your time. Don't rush in for something and then get caught. If it's late round, you might be like, all right, fuck it. We'll go for it while he's hurt because he won't have time to recover, you know. But I would say Tom Aspinall the way this plays out is I'd say he rocks him late in the first round, which wins him the round. I would say John Jones, it'd be kind of a boring round. Both guys have a lot of respect for each other. It'd be a boring round. I would say Tom Aspinall would rock him late in the first round. John Jones would go to the stool, waiting for the second round to start. Everyone would be like, holy shit, did that just happen? John Jones just got absolutely rocked. For one of the first times he's actually been like rocked. Everyone would be like shaking. Everyone would be like, what the fuck? And then he'd come out. I'd say maybe if he's hurt enough, he starts going for ground game. Or maybe Tom Aspinall knows and expects that and doesn't let it happen. Or maybe he's so hurt to the point where Tom Aspinall is just like, get off me, bitch. But I would say Tom Aspinall would end up winning the fight. I think he would rock John Jones one good time, and that would be in John Jones's head, because that's not necessarily something that he's used to. And I would say Tom Aspinall ultimately is hungrier for the win. He wants the win more. And I would think that would be John Jones' retirement. Maybe. But with knowing him, how much of a piece of shit he is, he'd probably find some bum to fight for his last fight just so he can go out with a win. So, I don't blame you. When you're a legend like that, you want to go out with a win, and you want to retire early. But I don't know, man. I think Tom Aspinall would end up getting the I'm gonna say knockout. I'm gonna say knockout win. I'd say it'd come in the third round, late second round or early third round. I would say, because Tom Aspinall, despite rocking him, would still be very, very cautious when trying to chase a knockout. Is my personal opinion. And you never know, it could be one of those fights where you have two guys who could easily put each other's lights out. You see that all the time, where you have two guys who are devastating power hitters or absolute beasts, where you're basically like, none of them ever go to a decision, so you're sitting there thinking, wow, this is a guaranteed finish. But then they respect each other so much that they're way too cautious in the early fight, and then it ends up actually going to a decision. And in that case, I think John Jones would win. But however, I could also, and the reason I think it would win is because I think John Jones would lose the first round or two by getting hurt really badly, and then he would adjust and win the last, 3 rounds by just being cautious and not really necessarily hurting him, but just winning the rounds. So if it does go to a decision, who I think is more likely to get a decision, I would say John Jones. Who I think is more likely to get a knockout, I would say Tom Aspinall. Who I think is most likely to get a submission, obviously John Jones. And we'll do that with the other fights while this fight's going. Who I think would most likely win a decision with Hamzat Chimaev and Israel Adesanya? I would say probably Israel Adesanya. Who's most likely to get a submission? Hamzat, obviously. And who's more likely to get a knockout? I would say, that's actually a good one. I say a lot of people would say Izzy, hands down, but Chimaev, maybe, man. No, I'd say so with that specific fight, it would come down to who would get careless at one particular time where they can get knocked out. Who tends to get careless more? I would say Hamzat gets careless more because Gilbert Burns rocked him. And Hamzat Chimaev's chin is, not that it's like people hype it up, but I feel like it's still in a way overrated. So I'd say Israel Adesanya likely get a knockout. So, And Michael Bidden Page, Gilbert Burns, that's like the easiest. I'd say Gilbert Burns is most likely to get a decision win. He's also most likely to get a submission win, but Michael Bidden Page is 3 times more likely to get a knockout. Maybe, Michael Bidden Page could secure a decision, actually. I would say maybe. I'd say that's a 50-50, but if I had to pick one, I'd say Gilbert Burns would be most likely to get it just because of pure, ground game. He could, I could see him getting rocked and then getting on his back. Michael Bidden Page goes, for the ground game and then just kind of gets held down and gets bullied on the ground a little bit. So, it depends, especially with it being a 3-round fight. I'd say 5 rounds, MVP could win a decision more likely than Gilbert, but 3 rounds, I'd say Gilbert definitely, obviously, has a higher chance of winning a decision. So, my picks for all these 3 fights, which these are the top 3 fights that I want to see mostly as of this recording, which is November 2nd, I believe. Maybe the 3rd. I think it's 2nd. these are the three fights I want to see the most. And my picks for each of these fights are, right now, leading up to the fight, they could change depending on, certain training things that I see or certain injuries or problems that come up or just seeing how they mentally are behaving at press conferences and stuff. But as of this recording, I would say Michael Venom Page uh, gets I might change that. I might say Michael Venom Page gets a late KO, like third round KO on Gilbert Burns. Maybe a TKO, not like a clean knockout, but like maybe a TKO, like stoppage. I would say is the most likely outcome of that fight. Maybe a Gilbert Burns submission, but I'm sticking with MVP. I'm always going to back MVP. He's my favorite fighter. I love his style. I love everything about him. Great person, very chill person. Ego, somewhat of an ego, but it's not like out of control, and he actually rightfully has an ego. Um, so that pick for that fight would be, if we're getting down to specifics, like Verdict MMA, which is, if you guys don't know, is where you pick who wins the fight, how they win the fight, and what round they win the fight. Um, I would definitely go all in on a MVP third round knockout. Um, Maybe second. I'm gonna switch it to second because can he do it late in the fight if Gilbert Burns does actually manage to maybe hurt him one time or bully him on the ground and tire him out? I'm gonna say MVP second round. I'm gonna say he would maybe lose the first round potentially with ground control time by Gilbert Burns, and then he'd get desperate in the second round, which would work in his favor because I think his blitzing style, the way he gets in and out of range so quickly, I'd say it would work in his favor, and he'd secure a second round knockout. Um, Great KO by Tom Aspinall here, by the way. So for Hamzat Chimaev and Israel Adesanya, I would say Israel Adesanya decision would be the most likely outcome for that fight. I think Hamzat would potentially win the first round, maybe two rounds, and then Adesanya would adjust to it, maybe rock him a few times. I'm not sure. For this fight, if I had to make an official pick right now, if they were fighting tomorrow, I'd say Tom Aspinall, third round TKO. But yeah, I mean, been a bit of an interesting video here. Let's check out the stats here. I'm actually curious. Can we go back and check out the stats for everything? I didn't even watch this fight too much. I was watching it, but I was zoned out by yapping, as the kids would say. Um, Hold on a minute. Okay, I was checking my phone. Um, yeah, one takedown for John Jones. Total strikes. Aspinall threw more and landed more. He threw 53 more, and he landed 17 more. I believe that's 17. I'm not gonna sit and add it up in my head. Yeah, very good performance there for Tom Aspinall. So with these simulated fights, we had Gilbert Burns winning by a submission. We had Adesanya uh, winning by KO, and we had Aspinall winning. So my predictions don't really line up too much. The only one that completely lines up is the Aspinall KO, and it's not the right round, but the Aspinall knockout is what I think happens. Adesanya, I don't think he knocks out Chimaev. I think he could, but I think more likely he gets a decision because I think he'd be so worried about not getting taken down. Here's a beautiful thing. This is why one of my favorite fighters of all time is Khabib Nurmagomedov. His ground game and just the pure threat of him taking you down and getting you on the ground turns him in to a good striker. Even though his striking might not necessarily be at a very, very high level, the threat of him getting you down and making you worry about that is what makes his striking so dangerous. Is that you're so focused on not getting taken down that his striking now becomes good. You know what I mean? So I think you could have one of those situations happen with Hamza and Adesanya. But, however, that being the case, I could see Hamza rocking Adesanya early. I think Adesanya, because I think Hamza Chimaev's chin is not good. I could see a knockout happening, but I think Adesanya being so scared of the threat of getting taken down on the ground, even though his takedown defense is A1, I think the thought of him, like in his head, he might be thinking, wow, if I get taken down once, I'm really in trouble for that round specifically. I think he wouldn't get taken down because he would focus on it so much. So him being so worried about the takedown, does that mean Hamzat would potentially fake a takedown and get a knockout? Could Hamzat get a knockout theoretically because Adesanya is so worried about getting taken down that he doesn't focus on striking? Potentially. But I think it'd work in Adesanya's favor. I don't think Hamzat would be capable. I think Adesanya would hurt him to the point where he takes the power out of Hamzat and he just kind of grinds out a decision win. So I think that would happen. Michael Venom Page, complete opposite. I think there's not a submission. I think there is a knockout victory for MVP, not Gilbert Burns submission. Uh, I think Michael Venom Page, and the only reason I would pick this fight because I think MVP would work on his submission denial and ground game so much to the point where he wouldn't be better than Burns on the ground, but he wouldn't lose on the ground from Burns. You know what I'm saying? So I think you'd see something like that happen. If they were, I don't know, man. I just think MVP would put a lot into his training to the point where he won't get submitted. But then again, it could be one of the situations I was just talking about where does he worry about getting submitted so much to the point where Gilbert Burns now becomes a striker and is a good striker because MVP is focused so much on getting submitted? Potentially, because Gilbert Burns, like I said, has very underrated power. So if I had to give odds here, I'd say 65 to 70% chance that MVP wins, period. Not knockout, not a decision, nothing. Just wins the fight. 55% chance. No, 51% chance that Adesanya beats Hamzat Chimaev. I'd say it's literally that close. Anything can happen in that fight. And I would say like a 40% chance that Aspinall beats John Jones in any way. But I think he will do it despite there being a 40% chance. I think that John Jones has the more capability of getting a decision, a submission, and I think he'd be cautious enough to risk to potentially not get knocked out for the whole fight. I think he'd be smart enough because he's a very good, smart fighter. I think John Jones would be the favorite, but I think Aspinall would still get the job done. But yeah, so those are some fights that I want to see. I don't know how long this video is, but those are some fights I want to see. Just thought I'd play these while I'm talking about it because I've been getting back into UFC very heavily lately. One of my buddies asked me about UFC, and I'm making my fight picks for the fights coming on today. I might make a video about that. Probably not though, because I'm not too much in depthly like well versed in a lot of the guys fighting. I got a basic general understanding of each fighter, but not like to the point where I'm like, oh my god, this guy's definitely winning. There's a few upset picks I have, but I don't know. I think main event. I think Brandon Moreno takes it. I'm not going to get into too much detail here in case I do decide to make another video. I think Brendan Moreno takes a decision here today. Upsets. I had Derek Lewis getting KO'd, but that fight got canceled because of some kind of whatever it was. Um, I think Rose will get his Rose Namajunas. I always forgot to say her name. Namajunas, right? I believe. I don't like her so much, man. I always just called her Rose. Think she gets a decision. Might be a boring fight. Somebody might get rocked maybe once in a fight. In that fight, I don't know. Think she gets the win. Um, in terms of an upset, I would say. Let me check the main card real quick. I would say that the most likely upset at the main card would be. Ooh, I would say probably Machado. I would say Machado, most likely. But also, um, Dustin Stoltzfus, I believe is how you say his name. I've watched him. I never knew how to pronounce his name. I would say that he's very unlikely to win, but according to the odds on verdict, at least, if you bet on him to get a decision win, it pays out He's got like it pays out 5 times the XP that you bet, which is how you bet on Verdict. You bet with XP. I'm going halfway in on him, and then halfway in on a Machado upset as well. Those are the two upsets that I think will happen. Yeah, so those are the two most likely upsets that I think happens. And on the prelims, um, I don't really care too much about it. I would say that, on the prelims, I went all in on a Victor Henry upset against Charles Jourdain. So I think Victor Henry, I'm going all in on him. I'm even throwing him in a parlay, and he pays out quite a bit if he ends up getting that win. I got Victor Henry winning a decision, which apparently is very unlikely, but I think it will happen. I might make a video afterwards talking about it if the event ends up being good. But yeah, and then from there we have John Jones, Stipe Miocic coming up. We got Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, which is a fight I cannot wait to see. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler rematch. I was rooting so hard for Michael Chandler because at that specific time I hated Charles Oliveira. I've come to respect him a lot now, and I do like him now, a lot more. And it's to the point where I actually like him. But if he's fighting someone I like more, I'm gonna hate him. But seeing his KO against Dariush, was very good. Seeing him lose to a arm triangle against Islam, almost 2 years ago on the dot, as of this recording. I was happy to see that because Islam is one of my favorite fighters. Seeing him beat Justin Gaethje was like, okay, you know what? But what really done it for me when he knocked out Chandler in the second round, I was like, fuck you. He got lucky. But when he, got Dustin Poirier around Christmas time, 2021, I believe, when he got Dustin Poirier with a rear naked choke in the third round, I was like, wow, okay, respect. And then I seen him get Justin Gaethje with a rear naked choke in the first round, and I was like, okay, damn. And then he went to fight Islam, and I was like, dude, you're stepping up way too much in competition. Islam's gonna absolutely. Um, I thought he'd knock him out, but he ended up submitting him, and I was like, fuck yeah, And then he beat Dariush, and I was like, okay, decent bounce back. Dariush isn't necessarily a top guy, but I respect the bounce back attempt, and the fact that he's fighting Chandler now, I'm like, okay. I'm still picking Chandler to knock him out. I don't give a fuck. I love Chandler to death. Respect everything about him. Built like a tank. Cool personality. Do I think Chandler, do I honest to God believe that Chandler is going to win that fight? No. But I want him to. And I'm willing to bet on him just for the hell of it because I believe betting just confirms my confidence that he can do it. But will he do it? I don't know. You got Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig. I think that's an obvious fight there. Bo Nickel definitely ends up winning that. I'm just going through future UFC fights. Like, bro, my Twitter bio easily says I could talk UFC for days at a time, days straight, like 2 days straight. We have Piotr Jan versus Davison Figueiredo, which is going to be a great fight. That's not on that event, by the way. That's later on. Um, I'm thinking Piotr Jan wins by a decision for that fight, is what I'm thinking. Um, Another guy I need to see come back is Song Yadong. I really need him to come back. Um, and then we got Cody Garbrandt versus Miles Johns. Oh God, I'm gonna need Cody to win that by a knockout. I need it to happen. I love Cody Garbrandt, so I'm actually gonna change this. Number one favorite fighter, Michael Venom Page. Number two favorite fighter, Ilya Taporia, and number three is Cody Garbrandt because I completely forgot about Cody Garbrandt, and I know you might be thinking, how could he be one of my favorites if I forgot about him? It's because I was thinking in my mind for some reason I was thinking like top contenders for some reason, and I completely forgot like, hey, most of my fighters aren't even contenders. Um, and plus, he hasn't had a big fight lately, so it's just one of those things where I just kind of forgot about it. But no, Cody Garbrandt's a beast, man. Seeing what he did to Dominic Cruz, very good uh, performance there. One of the greatest performances ever. I don't care, bro. One of the flashiest performances ever. But seeing Cody Garbrandt managed to grind out the decision win against Trevin Jones last year in what was that, April, I believe. Yeah, it was UFC 285. I'm pretty sure. I know he lost to Kai Kara France um, by first round knockout after, and even going into that fight, he was coming off a decision loss to Rob Font, which is that's the fucking fight that pissed me off the most, but it's whatever. He fought he fought Kai Kara France at, I believe, UFC 270, I think is what it was. He lost. Going into that fight, um, I picked Kai Kara France to beat him, and it hurt me to do that. But I don't know. I kind of was just, I don't know. And then I picked him to beat Trevin Jones because he came back about 2 years later, I believe, a year and a half, 2 years later, UFC 285. Trevin Jones, he beat him by a decision. I was very happy, and I was thinking now he just has to get a knockout victory, and then I'll be extremely happy. And then he managed to knock out that fucking absolute. He's like kind of a nobody to me. Um, Back in December 2023, it was UFC 297 or six, one of those, guaranteed to be one of those. He ended up managing to get a first round knockout on that Brian guy, whatever his name is. He's kind of a nobody, so I don't really care about him. But no disrespect, but he's a bitch. No, I'm kidding. No, gotta see him win this fight against Miles Jones. And do I think he will? I am so confident that he will win by a knockout that I'm actually going to bet $50 on that and see how much it pays out. And I might throw that into a parlay. But so those are some of the future fights coming up. And I can't wait for that John Jones, or not John Jones. I was saying the event I can't wait for because it's a good event, but the main event's going to be a joke. I'm going to watch it, of course, because just at the slight chance that I do get to see John Jones lose, even though it's not happening. Stipe is such a big fucking underdog. Rightfully so. Uh, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler is going to be my main event. I think that's going to be the people's main event as well. I don't give a shit, depending on how it ends up coming out. But we have Brandon Moreno tonight. I'm focused on tonight for now. We got Brandon Moreno versus Amir. I think Brandon Moreno gets a decision. We've got Aaron Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. I want to say Rose gets a decision. We got Machado versus Brinson Ribeiro, I believe is how you say his name. I got Machado getting the upset. Um, there's a few other fights, but some of those I don't really care about too much. Yeah. So just kind of got off on little talking there. I talk way too much about the UFC, but you know, um, yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, thank you guys for watching. This has probably been like, if I had to guess, like a 40-minute video, 45-minute video. But that's fine. I don't give a shit. Uh, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys. I should have done something while I was talking, not gonna lie. But thank you guys. Should have played something, I don't know. But yeah, no, thank you guys for watching. And yeah, see ya.